It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and actions.
Hey everybody, I'm Cathey Armillas.
And I am Marc Williams, and we want to welcome everybody to another episode of It's About to Go Down. And I got to let everybody know that the gentleman, I'm going to call him the gentleman, I'm going to call him a role model, I'm going to call him a real model. You'll hear more about that a little bit later on. This gentleman right here has gone from, you know what? I can't even tell the story. I'll do no justice to the story. You just need to know that you have seen him all over the place. And if you have not, you have to get ready to hear about a mind-blowing idea. This is Mr. Transformation himself. And he is here today to talk to us about this idea that everyone, even though we think we don't need to go through an extreme transformation, we all need to go through an extreme transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's About to Go Down, Mr. Corey Pegues. What's going on, Corey?
Hey, thank you, Cathey. Thank you, Marc, for having me on your show. I'm ready. Got the juices flowing. I know this is gonna be fire. All y'all episodes are fire. Well, let's burn it down today.
Let's burn it down. Hey, Corey, start us off with, what is this whole thing about extreme transformation? What is your experience with extreme transformation? Why should we be going through an extreme transformation?
Well, again, thanks for having me. We should be going through an extreme transformation because if your life isn't where you expect it to be or will want it to be, then you need to transform it. And my life was in the gutter as a young child growing up, and I had to lift myself up from the bootstraps to be, just a regular American, hardworking citizen and just live the American dream. So I actually had no choice. I was boxed in to either go to jail or make something out of my life. And I chose the latter.
Man.
Wait a minute, Marc. We gotta baseline this and give a foundation for this because, I'm sitting here and I've got Corey's book and it's fire about his life. And so talk about somebody that had an extreme transformation, went from, living in Queens, New York and dealing drugs to becoming a cop, and now is a law enforcement expert speaking all over the world on law enforcement. Corey, tell us a little bit more about that because that's very fascinating. And I think in order for us to talk to other people about extreme transformations, we should talk about yours.
Yes, thanks for that intro. So basically, I grew up in Jamaica, Queens in the crack era in the 80s. I grew up in a family of 5 sisters and myself. In the 3rd grade, my father left and things just went downhill. My mother was always on welfare her entire life that I know. She was on welfare. And then when my father left, we had roaches, we had mice keeping us up at night, open the refrigerator, roaches was crawling all over the place. It was a hard life. But the other piece to that was we had an abundance of love. This is what I tell people all the time. We were down in the doldrums, but we had a bunch of love. I had to go to 3 church services every Sunday. It's 8, 11, to whatever the numbers were. We had to go to church. I had to go to Sunday school. Went to school every day, and we made it however we made it. I had to wear my sister's hand-me-downs. I had holes in my shoes. It was tough. It was rough. But then at about the age of 13, I gravitated to the streets. I grew up with gangsters, pimps, and drug dealers. Remember, I had no brothers and my father left, so I pretty much was available to the streets. And I started selling drugs. We started selling marijuana and then started selling masculine tabs, loose cocaine. And then around 84, the crack era hit. And then I started selling crack cocaine. It was cool because, it was just like me and my 5 friends just selling crack, making money. Nobody even had guns. But after about a year, it started getting really, really dangerous where we had to start packing pistols. Eventually, I started working for one of the most violent drug conglomerates in the world called the Supreme Team, where they make movies about it. 50 Cent, his story, Power, one of his stories, Kanan, is loosely based off the Supreme Team. They do books and movies about it. Jay-Z talks about it. It was very violent. I ended up shooting somebody. I was in 11th grade. I had 2 kids. Didn't know what I was going to do. I was ordered to murder somebody at one point. And the light bulb went off and was like, it's time to transform your life. Because unlike other people that were selling drugs, I wasn't trying to be John Gotti. I wasn't trying to be Supreme, the head of the Supreme Team. I just was trying to get some money, some food, and some girls. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. But it morphed into this whole, I try to tell these young kids, watch what you ask for, because once you in it, you in it. Like, you see cops always getting in trouble because you can't play cops and robbers. When you was little, you used to play cops and robbers. You can't be both. You either got to be the cop or you got to be the robber. So you can't have one foot in and one foot out. So if you in, then you just got to be locked in. And I was locked all the way in to the point that I almost, killed somebody. We'll save some of the stuff so some of the people could buy that book once a cop, and they can see exactly how I went. And if you look over my right shoulder, I have a movie that's a documentary called A Cops and Robbers Story. My book got transformed into a documentary deal. You can catch it on Apple TV. Hulu just picked it up. Google, YouTube, it's all over the world. You can see the story. But yeah, and then at around the age of 18, I went into the military, went to the Army for 3.5 years, hated it because I'm a city boy. The military is really comprised of like poor people in the country, not too many city people, and I hated it. But it was good because it kind of shaped my early adulthood life, and it was good. And after 3 years and 8 months, I came back to New York City, and 6 months later, I went into the NYPD. And quickly rose through the rank. But along the way, I got my bachelor's, I got my master's. I went to Columbia University to the Police Management Institute, which is like the second most powerful police higher education school in the country. I've been an adjunct professor at 2 different colleges in New York City. And after 21 years of a successful police career, eventually meeting the President of the United States, Barack Obama, and a whole bunch of other people, I retired in 2013, and I've been retired since then. And after that, I said, Marc, Cathey, this is a story that must be told. And yeah, it's nice to, make some money and sell some books, which I did. But for me, it was more about touching some kids' lives, because me as a young misguided kid making the choices that I made, and then being successful, I kind of had the blueprint to tell people, listen, this is what you should do. I'm on TV, I'm on all these panels and stuff. And sometimes they put me on these panels with criminals, like people that's been in jail, and they change their lives. And I'm always, in the back of my mind, I'm saying to them, I'm the biggest gangster, because isn't the goal to be a criminal, not to get caught by the cops? Like, I'm not impressed if you get caught by the cops and you get 10 years in prison. That doesn't impress me. So, because for me, everything that you did, I shot people, I robbed people, I did all of that, and I didn't get caught. But then I did this 180 arc, because if I went to prison for 10 years, I would have came out with 3 PhDs. So I'm happy for them, but I'm not impressed, because if you could do all of that and don't get caught, that's gangster to me.
And then still change, like not change because you had to, meaning from outside sources, but changing because you wanted to internally.
Yes. Cathey, you hit on, like, try changing. Like, if you go to jail, you don't have no other choice but to change, right?
Yeah.
Try changing from having $5,000 a day in your pocket to going into the Army and I had $638 a month.
Yeah.
And, trying to survive out here, it was really, really tough. But I wasn't in jail in a prison cell and somebody telling me what to do every day. So, it was really up to me. So it was all willpower. It was just willpower. And I'm telling you, because we spoke previously, about this prior to the show. And I remember Cathey asked me, like, what was the light? What was the light? What was your change? And I've been thinking about that since we got off the phone. And for me, honestly, those mayonnaise sandwiches, those roaches and those mice, that was my motivation. It was like, I can't bring kids into this world and they're going to live this life. It's no way. I have to succeed, and I got to do it the right way, because I could have did the 5 years in prison, come home, they throw me a party or a barbecue and say, yo, you was cool, you did it. But I wanted to be something different. I wanted to actually be a real model.
Ooh. All right, he dropped it, Mark. I guess we're gonna have to talk about that.
He did.
We're gonna have to talk about that for a second. I mean, Corey, your story is just so gripping, and you know, I think we can get to it a little bit later on the episode, because one thing that I absolutely cannot believe is that you haven't given a TED Talk yet, but we're gonna fix that right up. Like, the world needs to hear you in much more of a powerful way. Your idea is so TED worthy, and everybody needs to hear it. But you did have this thing just recently. Tell us about it, where because you're ready to do a keynote. Tell us about this, and you're going to talk about real role model versus real model.
Yes. So I was on a Zoom with 98 people the other day, Sunday or Saturday, whatever day. And one of my friends, and I have to give him credit, A.T. Mitchell, he's big, prominent cure violence interrupter in New York City. He basically has a bunch of convicted felons that works for his company, and they go out and cure violence before it starts. Like, they know that there's getting ready to be a homicide. They jump right out there. There's a company called Man Up. Good brother, a good friend of mine. And he mentioned that he's into real models versus role models. And it was so powerful, because he was like, anybody could be a role model. He said, but the kids look at role models and they're not really impressed. But can you be a real model to the kids? Because a role model sometimes is somebody you can't touch. A real model is right in front of you.
Yeah.
And that was so powerful. And I said, wow, I'm about to do this keynote in June for this high school. And he just gave me my topic. And of course, I'm working on all this stuff. I got all this stuff in the last 2 days in my head on how I'm going to spin it. But I know by the end, it's going to be good. It's powerful. And that's going to be the TEDx. Real model versus role model.
Yeah, I love that, Corey.
Right?
Yeah.
Nobody in TEDx, no TEDx ever said that topic. I know they did.
I don't think so. I haven't heard it, Corey. I definitely haven't heard that. It's so good.
Cathey has listened to thousands upon thousands upon thousands of TED Talks.
I have listened to a lot of TED Talks, Corey, and that's never come up. It's so good. It's such a good, it really good. So let's talk for a minute. Just so, you know, Corey, Mark and I are going to geek out on you. So just consider, this is so different than what you're used to doing. You're used to being on shows and just having a conversation that's mostly about your story, but we're going to base our conversation more on, like, Corey's giving a TED Talk next week. How do we talk about how you're going to position this idea? How do you support it? You know, and so I just want to take for a second, Mark, and let's talk about these two things and connect them really quick. Okay. So we started with this idea of extreme transformation. Then Corey like smacked us in the face today with this real model versus role model thing, and I love it. So let's talk about the hierarchy of that. Corey, for TED Talks, you know, usually if you kind of notice, the TED Talk's always about like one idea. So both of these sit in the same space. So one could be the higher up idea, role model versus real model. And what could support it is an extreme transformation. People that need an extreme transformation might need to find a real model, not a role model. And that could be maybe one of the case studies that you kind of support this role model versus real model with. I don't know, Mark, what do you think? Corey, what do you think?
Well, one, I love the idea of starting off with the real versus role model and how that can be the key to the extreme transformation. The question that I have, Corey and Cathey, is this. When you speak to a group of people, whether it be in a high school auditorium or from the TED stage, is your intention to get us to become real models or to find real models?
That's a good question.
Well, answering that, with me only having this idea in the last 72 hours, I would think, for me, I just want to leave a nugget whenever I'm speaking.
Yeah.
I just want, so when I first met Mark, I'm never going to forget. He gave me a nugget. And I tell people this all the time. You know, I was nervous. I was coming to meet him as a coach. You know, I think I could speak, but I'm giving speeches all over the place. This, that, this, that, right? And he sat me down, and the first thing he asked me, he probably didn't remember this. He says, "Do you know Michael Jordan?" I said, "Yeah, of course I know Michael Jordan." He said, "Michael Jordan have coaches. Michael Jordan got trainers, he got tapers." And that just brought me all the way down. And I was like, wow. I tell people that all the time. Everybody want to be Michael Jordan. I want to be his trainer, because I'm probably going to make as much money as Michael Jordan, because after they find out that I'm training Michael Jordan, everybody's going to want to train me. You know, to use me as a trainer. So I just want to leave a nugget whenever I speak. And, you know, y'all are speakers, your coaches, you already know. After, 45 minutes, I don't know the scientific number, but after a few minutes, people zone out. But you can leave them with one nugget. And if I can do that, if it's being a real model or a role model, whatever it is, and I'm focusing on being a real model at this point, if I can leave them one nugget that make them remember that and change to try to transform it to being a real model, it's success for me.
Whew. That's so good. Mark, you asked such a great question. So Corey, the only difference between like a keynote and a TED Talk is you're putting all you're doubling down and hedging all your bets on the one thing, because that's what a TED Talk is, right? It's not, it is the one idea. So you're basically, when you give a TED Talk, it will be on one idea. And it's very different than a keynote where you can kind of go all over the place, and then people will grab. And, the funny thing is, anytime you talk, of course, you probably drop nuggets constantly, but everybody's going to grab a different nugget. And you'll do the same thing in your TED Talk, but you want to be a little bit more intentional about what you want to be a little bit more intentional about, like, what would I ultimately want people to walk away with, which is why I like that you asked the question, Mark.
Let me tell you, 2 years ago, I filled out for the Delaware TED Talk. Mm-hmm. But the process was so freaking long. It was like 20 pages. I'm not lying to you. After about 17 or 18 pages, I just was like, forget this. I
love it. He's like at the end and he's like, nope, I'm out. I'm out.
I was at like page 17. I was like, it's just difficult to do a TEDx. I can't, it's too many pages.
Yeah. Well, honestly, a lot of my TED organizer friends are watching this. So I think you might not have to fill out 20 pages. Anybody who hears your story, Corey?
Tell them to streamline.
Yeah, streamline it. Go right. Like, he's already filled out 17 pages.
Skip to the end. Skip
right to the end. Yeah, I love it. I have a question for you, Corey, too, though. I want to go back to the other thing for a second, because I think that's what we can mess around with in this conversation. You did have an extreme, transformation in your life, and you've, you go out and speak on it, and you see it happening in other people's lives. Is it something that you feel like everybody needs, or is it something like, where does that fit in everybody's life?
Well, I think everybody can transform themselves. Even people, it's like the Maslow self-actualization. Mm-hmm. Can someone be, self-actualized? Whatever. I messing the word.
Yeah, something like that.
Self-actualization. Can you reach self-actualization? And everyone is striving to get to the top of that hierarchy. And I think that, it's something that everyone is trying to strive for. Everyone wants to be better. When you think you got it good, someone has it better than you, and you're always looking, saying, I can go to that next plateau. I'm constantly trying to reinvent myself every day, all day.
I love this thought of everyone wants to be better, because it can show up in so many ways, right, Mark? Like I don't know. Do you want to? Should we play a game? Is it too early to play a game?
It's never too early to play a game, Cathey.
Corey,
get ready. Get ready.
We play games during our conversations sometimes. I just love this thought so much. Here's the game. All three of us will answer this. I'll go first. So I don't put the pressure on anybody since I initiated the game. Everybody wants to be better. What does everybody want to be better at? Because we can just show, even from the three of us, that everybody wants to be better at something. And I'll start with me. You really hit me hard, Corey, when you started this conversation with a role model versus a real model, because I've been a parent. I'm a parent, I'm a mom. I'm also a Nana. I've also been a big sister through the Big Brother, Big Sister organization. I'm a person that's privileged and graced enough to be able to coach a lot of people that are talking about a lot of things. And I want to be better in all those spaces. I want to help other people be better in whatever they're doing. And so I want to be better at what I'm doing so that I can be better. And when you were talking, Corey, I started thinking about, I was like, a lot of people think I'm really good at what I do, and I may be, but so what would an extreme transformation look like to me? And I was like, oh, that's easy. I could be doing a lot more. I could be doing a lot more psychology research. I could really, really dig into some areas that I have done in the past. I don't know. I was just thinking, you can always do more. You can always be better. Even where I'm at right now, I could make an extreme transformation. I could be a better mother. I could be a better nana. I could be a better mentor. Could be a better real model. I don't know. So that one was mine. Mark, how about you?
Cathey, as you were sharing what you said, the thought that came to my mind is, I would love to be a better husband. And I'm hoping that my wife says I'm a good husband. I'm hoping that she says that. If you're watching, I hope you. But I know, growing up as an only child, that I am very comfortable in my solitude, and so I can get on a stage and I can speak and stuff like that, but, can I be as communicative? Look, I threw out another word, communicative as a husband? And when I think about that, Corey's got me thinking, well, who are my real models when it comes to that? And I've got two cousins who have been married forever. And their relationship is, and their relationship is so solid that I don't look to the celebrity marriages, which maybe some of them don't work out, but I look to these two as my real models for how I can go through an extreme transformation from sometimes being reserved to being so much more open. Believe it or not, sometimes I can be reserved, Cathey.
I was like, who are we talking about right now? I love that, Mark. I love that.
Corey, your turn.
Yeah, those are good things. And I mean, I would encompass all of that. I definitely could be, I just want to be a better person, a better dad, better relationship, everything. Like, I just want to be a better person. I just want to be better. I'm trying. It's not easy. You have so many things pulling you. Everyone, things are pulling you in all different directions. And I'm just trying to be better and get to Hollywood. I'm trying to be better and get to Hollywood.
Ooh, I love it. I love that you just threw that out there, Corey, because you're on your way. So I love that you just brought it to the universe,
Fingers crossed. Tomorrow I have a really, 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 really big pitch meeting. So,
I'm crossing all kinds of fingers. I'm crossing all kinds of fingers for you.
Thing is, though, Corey, I don't, I'll cross all my fingers and my toes for you, but I don't think you need it. Like, your stories is phenomenal. It's amazing. You've lived the life, you've lived the extreme transformation. I think it would be trying to, and I hope Hollywood picks up on it in a big way, because it would be a great story. But I also think you have that personal connection with people and groups when you can go and speak. And when you give your TED talk, you're going to be talking to the world. What do you want the world? What do you want to tell the world? That's what I would love to know. You got one shot to tell the world. You got 18 minutes.
Oh, that's not that long. So we got
I
to
know,
crunch a lot of.
A movie is so
Hey.
much longer.
Let me tell you, listen, my goal is just to tell the world that, like, to give a chance to these young misguided kids, especially in the low social economic areas. They have so many deterrents, from crime to education, housing, food, everything. Just give them a chance, because in that plight, it all looks like plight. You could go any ghetto area in America is this. So for instance, every city, Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard is in a ghetto. And everywhere I go, and I go to MLK Boulevard, if it's New York, if it's Baltimore, I was just down in Atlanta, every MLK Boulevard is the ghetto. It's bad. But every MLK Boulevard has diamonds in the rough. They're there. But people don't give them a chance because they were on MLK Boulevard. Like, there'll never be anything. That's what people looked at me like, he'll never amount to anything. This is where he came from. This is what he is. He was there, and he's always going to be that for the rest of his life. And I had to not only kick every door down, but I had to make sure that the hinges was knocked off the door so nobody could put the door back together, And it's hard and tough when people don't give you a chance. Sometimes just from where you're from, they don't give you a chance. Sometimes just the way you talk, they don't give you a chance, or the way you walk, or the way you look. I was a cop with cornrows in my hair. This was, I was an executive. Right before this picture, I was a captain, and I was getting ready to get promoted to lieutenant, and I had cornrows all the way down to my shoulders. And they told me, if you want to get promoted to captain, lieutenant, you have to cut your cornrows. So for me as a young black male, I'm hip hop. I'm all hip hop, tattoos on my neck. I'm hip hop. I live it. I suck it. I breathe it in. I was like, if I cut my cornrows, you're taking my power away. And then I went home, and my wife was like, are you crazy? You're going to turn down a $17,000 raise for some freaking cornrows? And it hit me right then. Like, hey, stupid. Get rid of the braids and get your life together, so, but you got to the braids was turning a lot of people off. Just walking in the door, and it's like, oh, this guy is a sergeant in policing. Because I was cop unusual. Look at executives with braids in their hair. It wasn't the thing, but just like older cop generation before me, like my parents listened to the Stylistics. I listened to Run DMC. Stylistics, they wore bell bottoms. My parents wore bell bottoms. Run DMC wore shoes with no laces. That's what I wore. So when I went to work, I came to work with sneakers with no laces. And they was looking at me saying, where did we find this guy? How did he pass the test?
Corey, I got to say this. There's a lot of people who look at someone who looked like you, or who looked like me, or who looked like any kid who lived on MLK Boulevard, and judged and criticized, who are not real models. And I'm curious, if you're going with this whole idea of becoming a real model, who was the real model for you that gave you the chance? I'm curious about that story.
I'm glad you asked that. This is a great question, because people always ask me now, like, what made you become a cop? So as I was deeply involved in the drug game, and you could flip the back of your book, Cathey, to the cameras, because this is a point. That picture right there, I'm in the 11th grade in high school. You can see my right pocket is full of money. I have about $4,000 worth of jewelry on, but more importantly, I know that I have a gun on me, because this is like 1985. You wasn't walking around with all of that. And the trivia question at the end, because y'all could find out what kind of jacket I had on. That's the trivia at the end right there. It got the little lever on the bottom. You got to know what that jacket is. I'll tell you at the end. So I was going to school every day with money, guns, and drugs. And there was a cop assigned to the school. because it was the most violent school in New York City. And he would talk to me every day, Cathey. He knew that I was a young, misguided kid. We didn't have metal detectors back then like they have now. But he saw something in me because he knew I wasn't like a gangster. I was just like fitting in. I was doing what I was around. And he told me, he said, listen, man, you could make something out of your life. This is a good job. I can't get his name. I wrote about it in the book, but he was a Black man. He had an afro and he worked in the 113 precinct in Queens, New York. And I wish I knew his name, but he inspired me to change my life, to actually be a cop. And he would talk to me every day. And of course, I was like machismo. I was cool, like, yeah, man, F the policeman. I ain't never been no cop. But little did he know, in the back of my mind, I already stored it as a nugget and said, wow, I could do that. But I got to get out of this zoo. Got to get out of this zoo. And believe it or not, I went to school every day. You saw I was in school that day. I went to school every single day, even though I did all this crazy stuff. I went to school every single day and I graduated. Yes.
Corey, I had an idea. I had a thought. Mark, wondering what you think. You know, as Corey was talking, I was thinking, and then Corey, you said this beautiful thing, which I loved. You know, you just want to be a better person. That would be like everybody wants to be better. That would be yours. I was thinking about the extreme transformation, and I was thinking about it when he was saying, like, if I asked him about like, what would your 18-minute talk be? And it would be give a chance to young misguided kids. So then I started thinking about the dichotomy of those two things. I was like, there's some people that need an extreme transformation in the way that they think and the way that they view people that are not maybe giving people a chance. And then maybe there's some people, and they're not always just this and this. I mean, right? Like there's people, I'm just saying there's different types of transformations is what I'm saying. One of the things might be in the way that you think. If you think or you judge people, or you are not the kind of person that would give somebody the chance, or you couldn't see the young Corey that's going to school and could see right through everything and say, this young man is just misguided right now, and he just needs a little nugget somewhere. You know, he needs me to be, and you know, I don't know. I was even thinking about the fact, Corey, that you probably had so many real models along the way. I mean, I was even reading about your stepdad and how he left when you were young, and you said that there was bad, but then there was good. Like there was things that he taught you that were good too. Your mom sounds like a beautiful person. You went to church for 3 services, and the thing that you looked forward to was her cooking when you got home. Like, I loved that. I was just like, I felt that love that you were talking about, you know? Yeah. And I think there's always a story underneath the story, and people want to paint things so like, oh, if you live in a neighborhood on MLK Junior Boulevard, you're in a ghetto, and no, there's lots of love going on there. There's lots of potential. There's lots of talent. So I don't know. What do you think, Mark, Corey? Let
me give you an example of an extreme makeover that could probably bring it home in America. This is America, so everybody, all races could figure this out. We've been doing the war on drugs since the 70s, since the Reagan era, right? What are we doing today? The war on drugs. We're still doing it. You can't arrest your way out of an addiction. There's only 3 ways you can help people with addiction: counseling, treatment, education. But America has evolved. Crack era, lock your way up. We evolved now to the opioid crisis: counseling, treatment, education. Extreme makeover. And I'm happy. Like, some Black people are like all up in arms. You should have did this for the crack era. And I'm saying, hey, I'm happy that we have evolved. We can't go back to what we did, but America has evolved and said, hey, this opioid crisis, we have to use counseling, treatment, and education. That is such an extreme makeover. You know, I hope you get my point here.
Yeah.
That's extreme, that America has decided, the government has decided, we can't lock our way up out of an addiction. We gotta put this money. Think about it. More people got locked up in the drug era than died in slavery.
Wow.
Deep.
Wow. Wow. Can a real model counsel, treat, and educate?
Definitely a real model can counsel, treat, and educate, even if the real model has done something bad in his life, because whatever he or she has done they can use that experience, like myself, carrying guns, doing all this crazy, being locked up, doing all this crazy stuff. Now I can tell these young misguided kids, listen, this is what I did. But now look at me now. I got a house, 2 cars, white picket fence, and none of it is from proceeds of a criminal organization. And this is how I navigated to get that. You can do this too without going to jail. Or you can do what this guy did, get all of this nice stuff, nice house, 2 cars, white picket fence. Now he's in jail. His kids are homeless, and they took all of that away.
Damn.
Corey, you have become a real model.
I like how you guys just took this reel and roll. Y'all are good. Y'all are good.
We're just gonna break it down.
Here's why I'm rolling with it, right? Because I'm thinking about and I always say this, when it comes to TED Talk, you're not just speaking to young kids, but there's a lot of teachers showing kids TED Talks these days. So you're gonna reach a lot of people.
No, but this real versus role this is for everybody.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right? It's for everybody, right? And so I'm wondering, I go back to the question I asked earlier. Is this about asking people to find their real model? Or is it about asking everybody to consider how they can become a real model? I think that distinction—
Or both, right?
Yeah, right. Or, well, you know,
I think it could be both.
Right here.
I think it could be both, but with a heavy influence on being a real model.
Yeah. Yes, I love that, Corey, because if you are a real model, then people will try to role model that or real model that, right?
Yes.
It's like, it's true. I love that too now, because now I think you should make other words out of it. You know, people will real model that. Why don't we play another game really quick? Because I think this would be really helpful. Some of the things that you said, Corey, I think will be helpful for not only your TED Talk about this, but your keynote that's coming up and the kids that you're going to talk to, and you could test some things out. But you said a couple things that I think on the surface make total sense of what's the difference between a role and a real model. And then I just want to throw out one, and like, let's just crowdsource this between the 3 of us right now. But one of the things that you really made me think about is with a role model, it's about a perceived achievement. Somebody's a role model and that's only one little pin in time. Like if I went all the way up and became a famous celebrity, that's only about that one thing, has nothing to do with all the things that I did to get there or anything else, right? It's just about that one pin in time that could actually be taken away from me. Mm-hmm. I could have one bad movie and then everybody hates me forever. And then like, you know, anyway, that's my thought, is that also a role model is only about a perceived achievement. It's like one little moment in time.
And you just made me think, can a role model be a real model?
Can they become, can they become one? Is that what you mean?
Can they be both?
Can they be both? That's a good question. That's a good question, because
I guess because if you really think about it, there's some role model. So the role model, like Denzel Washington, he's a role model. I'll never, because my thing is to touch, feel, you know, if I could touch it, feel it, then I could do it. You know, I can't touch and feel him. You know, he's way out of my reach. But I'm pretty sure he's a real model to, so like the guy that starred in Black Panther. Denzel, his name Boseman.
Chadwick Boseman, yep.
Is he a real?
Denzel Washington paid his college tuition before he was big. Denzel was a real model to him. By giving back. And then he blew up to be this #1 star in America. Unbeknownst to the role model, he was a role model for Boseman, but ended up being a real model by paying his tuition.
And so then there's a third term, is, are you a real role model? Right? That's like the highest level. That's like platinum record. That's like.
I like that. A real role model. You're giving me some good stuff to put in this speech here, Mark. I like that. Yeah. That's the highest. That's the epitome of this.
Right. That's the platinum. Yes. That's a platinum, level right there.
Yes. You know,
Well,
and I was gonna say it's also about when I think about being a real model, because when I think about being a role model, I don't necessarily know the life I'm affecting,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Let's say I'm a Jay-Z or let's say I'm a Denzel. Let's say I'm a Denzel. Let's go with that one. The kid who's watching my movie or the person who's watching like, I don't even, unfortunately, I don't know they exist. So I'm
Right.
a role model to them, right? But to be a real model means to also be able to identify those people who are close enough to you to be a real model.
yeah,
You know, so you got to be close enough. You got to be able to identify that.
And that's why I always say, like, for me, a real model is somebody I could smell, I could touch, and I could feel. So that's me.
yeah.
Like,
I
smell,
love that.
touch, and feel. Like, the feel is a squeeze. The touch is just like touch your shoulder. And I would say I got to be close enough to you to smell you. So if I could smell, touch, and feel, it's real to me.
Yeah. And we've all had, you know, to your point, Mark, we've all had role models that maybe didn't even intend to be a role model in certain areas. Like, I mean, I've shared this with Mark. This will be my first time maybe saying it out loud. So if you're listening, Ice Cube was a major role model when I was growing up, and for none of the reasons that he probably would have intended. Like he probably would have been like, hey, I'm trying to reach some young lost white girl in the valley, you know, like that probably wasn't his kind of mindset. But because of some of the things that I tracked with him, he became a role model that wasn't real to me, but it was a role model to me. And so, but that's why I love having this conversation, because then you can kind of break that down and say, I love that, Corey. If you can smell them, if you can feel them, if you can touch them, they're real, you know, if they can really make a difference in your life. But role models can be powerful too. But a role model should be thinking about how to be a real model. I feel like you're just gonna get tongue twisted the whole time. You're gonna be like, wait, did I say that right? It's a
Look, I have to do a commercial
rhyme.
So I'm drinking water and I'm feeling sick. I'm sipping on some Theraflu. So I don't want your audience to think like this guy's like he's drinking water and he has vodka and cranberry juice over it.
No, you're great, Corey. You're awesome. I love
My
this.
eyes are a little red, a little bit. I'm feeling a little sick, but
Man.
I love how you can, I love how you show up in a real way, even if though you're not feeling good. I love that. That makes you a real model. Yeah. So, okay, let's do this then. Think about this for a second. If Corey, you're giving this talk and you're talking about, you know, be a real model instead of a role model, or just a role model, maybe that, you know, not that we're painting role model as this bad thing, but, you know, if 100,000 people can see you as a role model, but you can only be a real model to 10 or 20, you know, portray yourself as a real model. At the end, you said you would want people to become that more than to seek it. What would you tell, how would you see yourself wrapping this talk up for people to kind of inspire to being a real model?
well, I would probably leave them off with how important it is to be a real model, and not knocking a role model, because you just said something so important. I could be a role model for, you know, thousands and thousands of people, but I can't smell, touch, and feel them. But I could be a real model for 10 people and be so much more effective in those 10 people's lives. And that's what I really want to leave people off with.
Yeah.
If you can smell, touch, and feel, it's just powerful. It's more powerful than standing on an autograph line, you know, onto the arena when you're online with 20,000 people in front of you trying to get into the arena. Well, I could go to the little grungy spot in the village and I could see the poet right there. And I could meet and greet him right after the show because it's only 100 people in there.
What about this too? This is a metaphor too. I thought about this, Corey. The metaphor of being a real model is that you're being real with people. And if you're being a role model, what role are you playing? Right. So you're playing some kind of role. If I'm a famous pitcher I'm going to go with LA Dodgers. Sorry, y'all. I know you're both New York Yankee, but I'm gonna go with my coast for a minute because this is my thought. Anyway, you're a pitcher, you're a famous pitcher for the, you know, the New York, the LA Dodgers. You're playing a role, right? You're playing the role of professional athlete or whatever. But when you're talking about being real, Corey, you're also talking about being real to somebody else, showing them your vulnerabilities, telling them about things in the past that you've learned from that were bad, that you would never want to do again, telling them about all the good things. Like it's just being real. I don't know, that just metaphorically.
So just think about it. So go ahead, Mark.
No. I want you to go first, Corey.
No. So I never forget Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley always says, I'm not a role model.
Yeah.
Just think about it. The role models, you're kind of backed into being a role model. Real models is on purpose. You want to be a role model because you want to affect change. You want to drop the nuggets to somebody. You want to actually see them evolve. Listen, I'm Allen Iverson. I'm on Philadelphia 76ers. I'm Magic Johnson. I'm on the Lakers. I'm a role model to millions. I just backed into it. I just want to play basketball.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the construction worker that really wants to go in the neighborhood and pull people in. I have to touch them, feel them, and they have to smell, you know, touch, feel, and smell. It goes back to that. Like I'm really trying to make a difference, going to the local Boys and Girls Club, going to the PALs. You know, this is the real model. For me, role models, how I envision it, are like people in the universe that's like outside. You can't really touch them. It's all right for them to be role models, but you can't really touch them. And real models is, again, the smell, feel, touch position. That's just how I envision it.
I just wanted to add, and Corey, you know, you and I have talked about this, and I've heard a lot of other people say this. You told me once when you became a parent, that also changed everything. And I hear that from so many people. Like when you become a parent and you know that, and we don't use this language, but at the end of the day, when you become a real model, because now you have children, it changes so much. And that's why I love the fact that you said that becoming a real model is so important. And to be able to not only rescue misguided youth by giving them real models, but to rescue misguided youth by helping them see that they are actually real models too. And I think that's really important. And I think that it's really important also to have people think about this, that I'm not just a real model for people in my circle or people in my neighborhood or people in my office or people in my family. I need to be a real model for someone who needs guidance.
Right.
Right? Because I can be a real model for somebody who's doing just, you know, hanging out in the streets with me. That's not who I am. I'm talking about that diamond in the rough who's on MLK Boulevard that nobody knows about. What would it mean if I knew that it is now my responsibility, whether I want it or not? I'm so close. I'm so touch, smell, and feel close to that person. How does it drive me? You know, I think about Kobe Bryant, late great Kobe Bryant, who once said that he always thought there was a kid in the umpteenth row in the nosebleed seats who was looking at him. He saw that as a role model piece, but we all have somebody in the front row of our lives who needs some guidance. So I love the idea that we all need to become real models for people who are real close to us and understanding that realization. So, and by the way, the smell, touch, feel, and I keep writing it down different ways, Cathey. Yeah. Smell, touch, feel, touch, smell, feel. I don't know the order.
Hey, look, I know those three words when I made it up, it's really supposed to be smell, touch, grab, but grab doesn't sound right. So that's why I had to put feel in there, you know. But when I do the feel, you notice I grab my hands together. So it's like smell, touch, Phil.
We get the kind of grab. It's not the bad grab. It's the
Yes.
good grab.
Yes.
Mark, you were explaining something, and I came up with this really quick.
Uh-oh, Cathey with the concept.
Well, I think here, like, okay, this is Charles Barkley right here, right? Corey, you said that.
Yep.
He's an unintentional role model, right? You talked about Kobe Bryant. He's more of an intentional. He knows he's in that position, but he also understands it and wants to be more intentional. And then we go over to this side, right? You become a parent. You're an unintentional if you don't intentionally do anything, but you're real in the flesh. You're making that impact on your kids and the people around you. But even being a real, you can step more into that intentional zone. You know what I mean? So you can be an unintentional real model as well, where you're like, okay, I'm a dad, or I'm a mom, or I'm an auntie, I'm an uncle, but so I don't know, Corey, maybe you could use something like that too, where it's like there's kind of a quadrant in there.
Yeah, that's dope. I love it. Yesterday I went to my godson, so I'm a real model. I went to my godson's college graduation. He's 20, well, he must be about 23, 22. And I remember when he came home from the hospital, and I've been inspiring. He called me last week. He's like, God, Daddy, please, it would mean a lot to me if you came to my graduation. And it just touched me, because it's like, I've been his real model since he was a kid. And that's what I'm talking, that's the change. Like, you want to be there to see it through fruition. Like, wow, he graduated from college. And I gave him some money, and I said, now life begins. You gotta go get a job. It's over now.
and to me, you were being intentional in that moment, Corey. Do you know what I mean? Like, you were intentionally stepping into that role, as opposed to him just going his whole life, maybe never even telling you, but being like, "Ooh, he was always my role model, or my real model, because he was close and he could grab me."
Right.
But I love that. I don't know. There's even another layer of depth there, because it's about the intentionality, which is what I
love that, Cathey. I love that you added that to it, because yes, from the Charles Barkley to the Corey Pegues, that idea of being an intentional real model is really powerful, Corey. I definitely think you should be using that when you talk to people.
Okay.
And then that all boils back to the undercurrent of what's the outcome of these extreme transformations. I mean, it circles back to that. That's where somebody was an unintentional real model to you. You don't know the name of the cop that was at your school, Corey, but he was real. And he might've been, we don't know at this moment if he was unintentional or intentional, but it doesn't matter. He was real. It happened. It affected your life. And what came of your life? Some little nugget in the back of your head somewhere got dropped, and at some point you decided to transform your life in a very extreme way. If you found that cop wherever he is, I'm sure you had no idea the impact that it would make on your life, right? I don't know. I just love that. It's such a
I wish I could find him, man. I will hug that guy so hard. Because that's all it takes, though. Sometimes it just takes one person to talk to you. And, I wasn't ready for the transformation. I wasn't ready for the arc of change, but I had it in back of my head. And I was like, man, I could do something. He was like, city job, check every 2 weeks. You're going to be fine. Medical, dental, the whole nine. Like, you can change your life. Get out of these streets. It's only death or jail.
I want to add that, and this came up earlier, but I want to reemphasize it. I asked about whether you want to look for or whether you want to become one. And Cathey and Corey, I think you really emphasize how important it is to address both. Because as I was listening to you, Corey, I suddenly realized, especially as individuals, whoever that person is, who will be our intentional or unintentional real model, we don't know when they're going to show up in our lives, right? Mm-hmm. So in the meantime, in search or in pursuit of unintentional or intentional pursuit of that person, in the meantime, become that real model for someone else. So I agree that both of them are really important. And I think it's really important to bring up both of those sides. Ask people to become and ask people to raise their awareness of who the real models are in their lives.
I love that, Mark. And I'm even envisioning this, like when I first heard you say this, Corey, I was like, that if you titled this TED Talk, I could see you titling it like this because of the intrigue that it would build, right? Be a real model versus a role model. But maybe the end
That's
of that.
That's the
That's the hook. Exactly. Exactly. That's the hook. Because at the end, what you're getting to is be both. Like be intentional about both. Marc, you as a professional and as an author and as a speaker, clearly, obviously, you are both a role model and a real model. Even if your role model isn't millions of people, your role model is hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands. And I know it will continue to grow as well, just FYI. But you know what I mean? But you have this opportunity to be, so that could, I see that as being towards the end of your talk, Corey, is that, hey, you're actually going to be both, because there's going to be some people that will only see you from a distance, and everybody has the distance. Everybody, you don't have to be famous to have people that see you from a distance. You know, I think about their principal, the principal of the school, the high school you went to. They probably wouldn't remember 1/100th of the names of kids that went through their schools, but all those kids would remember them. So they were sitting in a role model position as well as a real model. So I even think the breaking these things down, Corey, is super. It is the hook, but I think breaking it down and telling people to be, I wrote down, be a good role model and a good real model, like be both. Love that.
You know, as we start to wrap, one of the things that comes to mind for me, Corey, is this whole idea of don't be a role model, be a real model. And then the story of how arguably you lived less than a model life, or it wasn't the life that you wanted, right? And the only way that you got out of that gutter, right? And I use that word because you used it earlier, was because of the real models that you came across in your life. Right? And now that then talk about how they have shaped your life and why this is so important, and how, yes, we do have role models and they're really important and they do play this role. But what I'm encouraging everybody to do now is to look for the real models and to become the real models, and understanding, Cathey, I love the way you said it. Start off with the dichotomy of it and then bring it back to, but then at the end, you really want to become both. You want to become what'd you call it, Cathey?
The real
role model.
I like that. I love that ending right there. I love it.
No, it would be awesome, right? It would be really great. Anyway, I love that, Corey. I loved this conversation about. I just loved breaking it down. I hope it's provided you with the depth of thought. I think good ideas, to me, I think we hear an idea on the surface and go, yeah, that's a great idea. But I think a really great idea is when you can actually really explain the layers of it, you know?
Right. And you guys helped me out a lot. I'll be watching this whenever y'all get it up. I'll be watching this 10 more times to write down everything. That ending is like so powerful. Being at the end, I want you to be a real role model. I love it.
Ooh, I love that. Way to bring that back around, Marc. I love that.
Yes.
That was very good.
I just want to summarize an awesome idea conversation. And you know, Cathey, we always ask everybody, like, how was the idea evolve? But I think Corey just said it right there.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm just amazed at how y'all took what I said, scrapped your entire, whatever y'all was gonna do was scrapped. And we just did this whole conversation on real versus role. This is ingenuous. Y'all are good. I'm waiting for Spotify to call y'all and give y'all a show.
I love it. That's true. So behind the scenes, like 5 minutes before we hit record, we were just like, hey, let's roll with this other thing that you talked about. I love that.
That's coaching, right? We take what's in the moment and walk with that, you know? So thank you for opening that up and giving us this space to really explore that idea, because you're going to change a lot of people from the center of that red circle and beyond.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Corey, how do people find out more about Mr. Corey Pegues, the real role model?
I love it. I love it. Yes. Well, listen, they can find me. They can just go to my website, CoreyPegues.com. I'm pretty sure y'all going to have my name up somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the show. Yeah. They can just go to CoreyPegues.com. All my handles are on there, on my social media. And actually on my website, they can leave me questions, email me or whatever. Make sure they buy the book. But everything's on the website. They can just go and look.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, find Corey there. For anybody watching, thanks for watching. And I'm glad that you were blessed to hear about Corey's story and hearing a little bit of the impact that he makes. I hope he inspired you just in this conversation to be a real role model. And if you want to talk to us or be on our show, go to it'sabouttogodownshow.com and sign up, or tell us about somebody that you know that has a good idea. But Corey, thank you for being on the show. And until next time, it's about to go down.
Thank you.